Mostly everyone's speaking about mitigation. That's the first time that someone wants to do a report on adaptation. Also, this report is produced by experts from the region or working in the region. That means that the priorities of the region will be well reflected in the report for us. And also, it's good that the report aims to identify the gaps and describes policy options and provide guidance on what to do on adaptation in the short run, and also projects for long-term options to address climate change. Also, I believe that what is good also in this report that it will provide an input for the 5th IPCC report. So the Arab region will be well reflected in the 5th assessment report. And also it is a very good opportunity to build a strong scientific evidence base of impacts of climate change in the Arab region, determine vulnerabilities, and also to develop regional scenarios. We have the global scenarios, but we don't have the regional scenarios. Also, the report also will validate the demands of Arab countries when they ask for financial support to implement the national adaptation plans. And lastly,
COP18 is coming to your region. What does this actually mean? The vote to actually get the next COP into your region. I mean, has there been already a response, either from the media, from the region, or from even some of the leadership?
No, it means how much climate change is a crucial problem to the region, and that's why when we hold the next summit in our region, it will reflect how much we want to address the issue and willing to cooperate regionally and internationally on this.
So much. What we would like to do now is to open the floor to questions. And
thank you very much. My name's Judy Searle. I'm here on assignment for 50/50 from SABC TV2. Yesterday I interviewed the Indian Minister of Environment, and she said that they have done research which says that there's no chance of stopping global warming if we carry on concentrating on carbon dioxide, and what we've actually got to do is hit the methane. But she also said that since 70% of methane is related to our meat eating, that there's one thing that we could do which would save the planet, and would only take 8.4 years before before you could see the full effect, and we would start seeing the effect within 1 month, was to stop eating meat. Now, what's the chances of that in the Arab world?
Okay.
That's my question.
Okay, good. We had quite a discussion around
it's methane,
meat.
by the way.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion around, please, that's of a dietary nature. However, it's got implications in terms of methane, which is much more serious in terms of depletion of the ozone. This gentleman here in the, right, second row.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Dr. El-Sayed Sabri, the National Project Manager of Third National Communication on Climate Change in Egypt.
Okay.
My question to Dr. Dort regarding her presentation. She mentioned that there is 10% reduction of the runoff all over as an average for the Arab world. And she mentioned also some expectation for the reduction of the food by the year 2080 and the year 2050. And we know that the Arab world is a very diversified regions, and they are not all the same. And until now, the IPCC mentioned only the GCMs, global circulation models, but there is no regional circulation models on which we can make trusted expectation and projections. And that's why I think there are other notes. I think this report needs more elaboration and more ownership by the researchers and scientific community in the Arab world.
We are not conducting new research in terms of the climate science part. As you said, there is no global model or regional model for the Arab world. So we've been taking what's available, and with that, we have come up with a good summary, we think, and we would like to have your views on this too, you and your colleagues. And moreover, we're trying to indicate to policymakers and people that work with large programs where they can find the data and the information and how to use the data. So there's sort of a little handbook of 10 pages, how you go about this. Because even for us that work on climate change every day, we have a hard time with all the data from IPCC and others, how to actually use them and make them useful for the project, etc.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that is a call to us to say that this document does not have a rigid framework. It is a living document, in a sense. So which means you can impact it in terms of where it's going to go. I do not know who would like to talk about the methane issue, but anybody, including people on the floor, who like goat meat and beef, to maybe speak to this issue of the production of methane, which is lethal to the ozone layer.
Okay, I'm from Somalia. My name is Hassan Ibrahim. My first, question is, the organizers, since Somalia is Arab, member of Arab League, would have been much better if you coordinate with us so we could share our experience in first hand. Since Somalia's case is just relevant and is current. The famine of Somalia, even though I can be late, I'm sure maybe you have raised, but it would have been much better for us since we are the people who has been affected. The first 3 months, 29,000 children died, 750,000 malnourished. It's still on the rise, and the problem is not finished. 4 million people are facing food starvation, food shortage. So the food security, because there is no rain, or maybe the rain came different time, there is no crops, and the food price has risen. I don't want to go into the length of that questions about the famous things, but you're all aware of it. Yeah. My question is just, since Somalia's stability is contributed a lot with the climate change problem, Somalia's main energy now that we use for cooking is wood and charcoal. Therefore, deforestation and land degradation is on the rise. What we wanted, just the panelists and the experts, especially the World Bank, to know, even though Algeria has raised that question in terms of the resources available for Somalia, for the region, to adapt, to introduce alternative energy, green stoves, and so on. In terms of your meat, your meat thing, Somalia's economic space agro-pastoralist. Therefore, we are the main exporter to the livestock into the region, in Arab countries. It has affected significantly, as many livestock has died, and it's still on the rise because there is no, nothing. So just that is the personal experience that I'd like to share. Thank you.
What are the possibilities of funding the Arab initiatives, and what are the sort of advice that you may give towards the development of the regional initiatives, and how do you hope to encourage those from the World Bank point? And then the follow-up on that was the issue of the follow-up on the Cancun agreements. Where does the World Bank stand on those issues?
First of all, this report, we're going to use this report to inform the way in which we structure our dialogue with all of our client countries in the region. So the way that we work is in a dialogue with countries sort of talking about what their priorities are, listening to stakeholders in the countries as well, and then building a program, and then bringing our investment services to that. We obviously have the investment services from our own capital, but then we also steward the climate investment funds that were developed prior to Copenhagen as a Fast Start initiative. And within that, the PPCR, the pilot program for climate resilience, has been an important source of programmatic initiative, and that's what we've used for Yemen. I mean, that's for the poorest countries. But I think that the country partnership strategies that we have with the countries in the region, based on this kind of report, will help, to drive our program into more adaptation activities. I mean, the important things are climate smart agriculture, agroforestry, trying to get maximum yield in terms of capital for development from every hectare, trying to work on both water supply but also on water demand, getting the efficiency of water use through that economy. We're working with McKinsey and others in Jordan with the Water Resources Group on a supply-demand study, which I think is revolutionary in how it leads to possible investment plans. I think the other thing is city design and the urbanization of the region. It's a very young region, it's fastly urbanizing. So some of the spatial planning and urban planning for the region will be very important in terms of really adapting society for the future. So this is all the kinds of things that we work on, and I think it's for us with each of the countries to build a dialogue around what kind of adaptation strategy they want. I don't think I've got time to go through everything that we're doing as a response to Cancun, but I do think that regional integration is important from an economic perspective. It's now also particularly important in light of the new political economy of the region. And I think for us to be able to respond, the dialogue and the partnership with the League of Arab States, with the Islamic Development Bank, I think that we're expanding the partners with whom we work. You asked me about a dashboard. We don't have conditionalities related to adaptation, but we do want to work with countries that are committed to lower emissions development plan, and I think that is where we're looking. That's the kind of commitment we're looking for. And we're talking about adaptation today, but there are huge opportunities for the generation of renewable energy in the region as well, and we're starting to direct really serious money into renewable energy investments across the region. There were other questions, but I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. I think there is a need for. Thank you very much. That was very helpful there. And I hope that the gentleman from Algeria will maybe begin to put your proposal in such a way that it becomes very attractive to the World Bank, given what their concerns are. But you wanted to respond, Madam, to the issue of Somalia, because that does seem to be quite a major issue that might need some serious focus. But
I wanted to respond first to the meat.
Okay.
Yes, because when you look at the Arab region, we are 22 Arab countries. 6 are the Gulf states, but we have also 6 of the least developed countries in the region, least developed. So meat is not the main dish on our table, because in most of the Arab countries, the percentage of the poor people is still very high. So we need to improve our diet and to introduce more meat in it, not the other way around. As for Somalia, the drought that is experienced in Somalia is really poses great threats. And I read somewhere that out of 6 children, 1 will die before the age of 5. And that with a drought, year after year drought, it's difficult to, it will be irreparable. But we have to first have social stability in the region so that we can address the problem of drought in the right way. Thank you, sir.
I came in late, I rushed from another meeting, but I just wanted to know if you brushed on the subject of low carbon action plans and long-term cooperative actions in the region.
Yes, please.
The first priority for the Arab region is adaptation. CO2 from the region is less than 5% from the world level. So what's our priority is adaptation. We have to survive. We are the region with the lowest water per capita in the world. How to react so that we will be able to address the impacts of climate change. That's the first priority, but that doesn't mean that we are not also interested in low carbon initiatives. We are doing also a lot of work in this direction, but according to the negotiations that are taking place now, any actions on mitigation should, the developed countries should provide us with the technical support, with the technologies and the capacity building necessary to undertake such action.
Sorry, just a second. Okay. So I guess I agree with Madam Fatme regarding the long-term cooperation, but at the same time, I guess we have at a national level, all countries have some strategies, and I know that Lebanon has for reducing carbon emissions and so on. But of course, in view that our carbon footprint is so small, I think we're doing as much as we can. So we have to focus on adaptation and
Yeah, I wonder if you could comment, because in your presentation you talked about the diversity in terms of just GDP, for instance. Is there a possibility of conflict where those who are least developed now would demand more resources for their development, whereas those who are more developed would seek to keep the developed people out of reach of resources? And maybe both of you could respond to that.
So I guess any investment will be complicated by the interrelations between mitigation, adaptation, and development. So if you look at the definition of adaptation, which is reducing vulnerability and enhancing resilience, it's a very broad definition. So most of the development activities actually can go under this definition.
Okay, did you want to say something,
I
Engineer?
think most of the countries, they have their initiatives for the low carbon project and for renewable energies. However, we are vulnerable for the impact, so we are concerned on that issues more than, although we are doing a lot of initiatives for a lot of a project for renewable energy and all of these things. So
Madam, you wanted to say something?
There could be competition over the scarce water resources. And what happened in Darfur at the beginning was competition over the natural resources, and then it turned to the big problem we are having now in Darfur. Already in Syria there was a migration from the east to the west for 1 million people. So this also means that there will be more stress on the water, on the natural resources when we move west. Even within countries with moderate income, per capita incomes, or with high per capita incomes, there could be within the countries competition between the different users. Because agriculture is now consumes 80% from the water, even in the Gulf states. Yeah. Even in the Gulf. Okay. So we should have integrated water resource management with regard to water.
So can I have this lady and the gentleman, then we'll come back to Somali.
You mentioned that there's a flight from the rural to the urban areas because of the lack of water and the degradation of your agricultural land. So what I wanted to know is like what international adaptation mechanisms can be used by the cities to deal with the effects of climate change and the flight from the rural to the urban area.
Thank you, Saad Al-Daham from Bahrain, I'm a meteorologist. My question is, the speech has mentioned about the effect of the climate change. The impact of climate change is not only the dryness, and especially in the Arab regions. And as you know, the Arab regions, most of the land is desert. And we are suffering from the sandstorm. And we've done so many workshops under the umbrella of the WMO, and the number of dust storms yearly has been increased. So my question to the Arab League and to the World Bank, what the solution they're going to do for that?
Migration from rural to urban areas, it means that life in the rural areas is worse than in the urban areas. That's why people are migrating to the urban. So I mean, when you have economic development, it should be balanced. So also the local, the local communities will be well developed. That's what we are aiming at. So when the countries develop now their national adaptation plans, implementation should be also on the local level. And on the regional level, we have already finished our second draft of an Arab action plan to address climate change, and the third draft will be available, I think, ready in January, and we'll discuss it further. The aim of the Arab action plan is to enhance capacities for the Arab countries so they will be able to implement it, to implement their national adaptation plans. And with regard to dust and the sandstorms, they increased in frequency, duration, and intensity because of drought also. And when you look at the Arab regions, they impact life. So they have socio-economic impacts, environmental impacts, and health impacts. And the IPCC launched, I think, a few days or few weeks ago the report on the extreme events, and they include sections on drought and dust and the sandstorms. And when you read this report, they have studied the impacts of the sandstorms in our region on the Americas, not inside the region. So we need more work from the scientific centers to know the impacts of the sandstorms in the region and how they affect the economy.
Thank you very much.
And I totally disagree with the response that I've got from Dr. Faduma, which is the question of stability. It exists and we cannot ignore it. But saying that because there is no stability, we cannot go there, it's as if somebody, you sentence him death and wait in execution. Having said that, as I speak now, the Kuwaiti Red Cross, Emirates Red Cross, Turkish Red Cross, you name it, all of these people are working on the ground in Somalia, and they are doing their own business. And as a government, we're not interfering because of transparency, and we want them to deliver. But that is only for temporary measure. In terms of adaptation, Somalia's case, it started 1970s. The drought we used to have in Horn of Africa every 10 years. And then cycle changed in the 80s, about every 7 years, 90s, became every 5 or 4 years. But now it's every other year, sorry. So the adaptation is very important for us when we share with the region. Because, for example, as a farmer, if I want to plant in April and the rain comes in July, I've lost 2 seasons, not only 1. So the food security and adaptation measurement is very important. So we need that Somalia to be addressed properly, and local NGOs are operating there. There is some mechanism. The World Bank is here. Maybe just she's very familiar. There's some other channels there's some other approach. Thank you.
Are you insinuating, sir, that there is no intervention, if you will, at a political, governmental, or intergovernmental level? Is that what you're saying? And you're saying that there should be mechanisms to do that?
It's spot on. You know, we have little coverage, media blackout. You know, even as we are here for climate change, and Horn of Africa has been affected widely. Thanks God, President Zuma mentioned on his, speech. But on the floor, you can't see it, and as if nothing has happened.
Okay.
And millions of people are dying.
All right. I think we're getting your motion. I wonder if you'd like to respond to this humanitarian crisis that seems to be dealt with only by NGOs and not at
no, I know that
state level.
The League of Arab States has a mission in Nairobi that's specifically for Somalian issues and what's happening there. And also on the summit level and other ministerial councils, we are tackling the Somalian question, and also within the African Union,
Okay.
it's the same. But it's a very difficult issue that needs handling on the regional and also on the international level.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions before we give our panelists a concluding statement each? We've got about 6.25 minutes. Well, this has been an incredible audience here. Professor, if you'd like to add, I'd like to give you the final word. In Zulu, we say, we give you umngamla chuku. You will have the final say.
Get a result of all the studies and the result of all the reports that happen in the area to utilize in implementation-wise.
Okay.
So it's time to act, I think, in the region.
All right. Madam?
Sure. I think that the flagship report is a very important first step for the Arab countries in order to gain a better understanding of the impacts of climate change on their people, on their economies, and so on, and the different adaptation options that they have. However, I think that the critical next step would be an economics adaptation report, solely economics, and that would incorporate a full-fledged economic study on all sectors that are affected by climate change, and would produce a range of investment estimates. Those estimates, those results can be used by the Arab countries to better articulate their financing needs in order to attract much needed capital. And what I'm referring to is maybe something similar to Adapt Cost, which is an economics study that was funded by UNEP and examines all the different sectors on the African continent.
Let's go to the floor and get your final comments, please, before we conclude with our seniors at the table.
Yeah, as half of the population in the world are living in cities, while cities are producing 70% of the greenhouse gases. So we should give them the support, financial and technical, to act in line with the national agendas and action plans.
I think this report is a very important first step, but this is a region that can lead the rest of the world in showing how adaptation to climate change should be completely integrated into the economic development of the region. So country by country and across the region. I mean, this is an opportunity to find the innovation around the efficiency that is going to be needed to live in such a hostile environment unless we do something about climate change quickly.
Thank you. Madam, your last word.
I want...
for now.
Yeah?
Only for now.
I want Dorothy and her team to go on with their good work and complete the reports, take into consideration the comments and the remarks that will be sent by different stakeholders from the region. We want this report to be a reference book put on the desks of decision makers and make good use of it. And at the same time, we want all stakeholders from the region feel that this report emanates from the region, reflects its interests and priorities. That's it.
Thank you very much. You've been an incredible audience. I really appreciate your contributions. I think I'm leaving this place with a real challenge myself as a South African. And I'm sure also with 50-50, which is a regular weekly television program around issues of environment. And I hope that you will get the opportunity to actually have these concerns that you've had aired on our South African national broadcaster in the coming weeks. But I think the three things: act now. There's an emergency about this. There's an urgency about it as well. But act together. I'm really pleased. I have done some shuttle diplomacy in the Arab countries. So I started in Egypt, going up to Lebanon, went across to Jordan, and then the West Bank, and then even sneaked into Gaza, and so on. I know that this acting together is really encouraging for those of us who are observers from a distance, but also act differently. You have to tell the world, first of all, how you are going to be acting differently, but also to tell the world how the world must begin to act differently, because you are the lowest emitters of carbon footprint right now. So how should the rest of the world be behaving? Maybe we should hear you more about what the Canadians are saying, what the Americans are saying, what the Japanese are saying, what the rest of Europe is saying in terms of your concerns. But act and act differently. So thank you very much. I will remember this to the day that I go to the grave, as have been a historic moment in my own personal life. But to conclude for us, we'll call Vahakan Kabakian to please come and conclude the proceedings. And we've got 3 minutes before we're supposed to be out of here. And I think it's wonderful that we've kept time this way. Thank you very much.
For the invite. I will not take 3 minutes. I'll try to sum it up within a minute or so. I think it was a good exercise for us to see how diverse the Arab countries are. From my perspective, and I've mentioned that before, we look like to be a smaller planet within the planet. The diversity of the geographical areas that the Arab world covers, including economic diversity as well, does actually provide us a snapshot on most of the adaptation needs that we have in the world that we will eventually be needing to adapt because of climate change. The good news is there's movement forward. The Arab League is taking the lead in doing that with partnership with World Bank in this case, but I'm sure we do have a lot of other organizations as well providing certain assistance depending on the requests made by the different countries in the region. Well, again, it's been a good exercise for us as well. I would reiterate the importance of the report, but also we need to keep in mind that it is a first step.
So, okay. Thank you. So you see, that's the fundamental issue, is actually getting the political will to get us to do what needs to be done. When you look at it, we're a nation that receives no water from anybody else. We provide water to Syria. We provide water to the Jordan River. I mean,
So
it
how much
starts
needs
in
to go
Lebanon.
down in that river, and what's the ecosystem?
It starts in
Yeah.
Lebanon. You know, the Jordan River starts in Lebanon.
Thank you.
All right.
It's only one of thousands custom here.
Where are you from?
From Indonesia.
Oh, that's cute. That is so cute. Tangannya gini dong. Tangannya.
Okay.